Hi there, welcome to the Schwowin's Nest. My name is Sandra. I went over to Dollar Tree and found some really neat glass items. This one looks like a gourd, and I found some other ones that look like pumpkins. I'm going to give all of them a couple of coats of white latex paint in an eggshell finish. This one has some really neat grooves in it that I thought looked like little ribs of the pumpkin, so I'm going to do this one as well. I also wanted to find something that would make a really cute tall gourd, so I found this plastic water bottle, and I'm going to do the same thing, a couple of coats of white eggshell paint. Next, I'm going to take some gray chalk paint and a small artist's brush and draw some lines where you would naturally see the grooves of the pumpkin. So for this first jar, I'm going to do it in between all of these bump outs and just do a really dry brushed light line all the way around. This is another glass jar that I found. It also has a lid. You can see that off to the left there. I'm going to do the same thing. Just draw some gray lines all the way around and give it the look of a pumpkin. I've put the lid on the jar and I'm just going to continue matching the lines with the gray paint. I'm really liking how these are turning out, but I wanted to add a little bit more of a pumpkin or fall look to them. So I took some red and yellow acrylic paint, blended it together until I got the color I wanted, and now I'm going to dry brush onto all of these jars, giving this a little bit more texture and an aged, distressed look. I just love dry brushing because it always brings out the features of your project, the lines, the bumps, anything like that, gives it more character and more of a distressed and aged look. I'm going to repeat these dry brushing steps with the gourds, and I'm also going to add a little bit of gray just to give it some more dimension. The other thing I like about dry brushing is when you put your original coats on with a rough brush, you get some brush strokes, and that really helps to give some lines and some distressing, especially to a smooth piece like this bottle. It doesn't have a lot of texture to it, so the original paint is giving it the texture that it needs. When I was thrifting a while back, I found these zinc crown mason jar lids, and they fit perfectly right on top of this little candle holder from the Dollar Tree, and I just thought that would be the perfect addition to top off those little ones. Then I'm also going to use some twine and jute rope to cover up the knobs on these two to make them look like pumpkin stems. Once I got almost around to the top, I took some jute rope, split the strands in half, actually in thirds because that's how they're wrapped, and I'm going to use this to finish off the stem of this little pumpkin. When I'm wrapping twine around things, I always use my hot glue to secure it in a few different spots as I'm wrapping it around, just so it stays in place. I'm going to leave a few of these strands hanging out so it looks like some of the vines that you see on pumpkin stems. I also added some short pieces of the thick jute rope to act as the stem. For this one, to make it look like a gourd, I needed to add more of a top to it. So I'm using the thick jute rope and I'm going to glue it all the way around, but I'm going to narrow it each time I wrap it around in the circle so it has more of a rounded cone shape. And then I'll add another short jute piece of rope to act as the stem. I'm also going to repeat this same process for the large water bottle that I turned into a gourd. I'd like to take a moment and thank all of my subscribers and viewers for supporting my channel. I've grown really fast in the last month or so, and I owe it all to you. Thank you so much for your support. If you're new to my channel, go ahead and click that red subscribe button. Stick around a while and see what I'm up to. My next project is this Dollar Tree acorn chipboard piece and some burlap. I'm going to start by putting some burlap for the top of the acorn, and I'll just glue it across from one edge to the other. I'll then wrap it around the back and secure it in place with hot glue. I want the top of the acorn to have some extra texture, so I'm going to be doing some folding of the burlap. So you can see that I've just folded it there, and I'm going to crease it just a little bit with my fingers, and then I'm just going to put some hot glue and place it down where I want that fold to start. So it's actually pretty simple to do. Just make sure you don't burn your hands. I did do that a couple of times, even though I do have those silicone finger tops from the Dollar Tree. I just always forget to put them on. I'll keep folding this over until I run out of burlap, and then I'll be adding another piece on the top just to finish it off. I've got my burlap section all completed, and now I'm going to add some small twine to the top of the stem just to give it a little bit of a different texture. I'll start by gluing it at the back and then just wrapping it around and gluing it as I go just to keep it in place. For the bottom portion of the acorn, I found this beautiful fuzzy yarn with all these gorgeous fall colors at the Dollar Tree as well. And I'm going to start by hot gluing the first section at the back, and I'm just going to go to town, wrapping it all the way around, gluing it occasionally as I come around the backside, all the way down to the bottom of the acorn. It turns out so cute. I just love this idea. Look at how cute this acorn turned out. I just am so in love with it. For the last little final touch, I'm taking a little piece of burlap oak leaf and gluing it onto the top. I hope the DIY I'm going to share with you today is a pumpkin patch farmhouse sign. This is going to be made from this placemat, which is actually a hard on one side and cork on the other side. It came from Dollarama, and you can see here that I have already made it over once. I'm going to make it over again. I'm just taking some sandpaper and sanding down all of the lettering so it doesn't show through the paint when I go over it again. Originally, I had glued on the lemon picture, so after I sanded it, I was able to just grab that paper and peel it right off. Made it so much easier for me. I'm going to start by using this Folk Art Home Decor chalk paint in the color Maui Sand. It's a really beautiful dark gray, and I'm going to give this just one thick coat and then I'll let it dry. The second step is taking some country gray chalk paint, which is a little bit of a lighter gray color, and I'm just going to dry brush around the edges a bit. I don't need to go all the way into the center because that's going to be painted a different color. Next, I'm going to use some white chalk paint, and I'm going to start in the middle and feather it out to the end so there's not so much white paint at the edges. I want more of the white paint in the center and less of the white paint on the edges. So it's going to be a bit of a dry brushing on the edges, but nice and solid in the center. I am sure that there are going to be a bunch of YouTube creators participating in this challenge. What I'd love for you to do when you're done with my video is click on that playlist link that's down in my description box. Grab yourself a cup of coffee or some tea and get comfy. Watch all of that Pinterest inspiration. You are sure to find some inspiration yourself to create your own home decor, but if nothing else, it'll be beautiful to watch. Here's a look at my Pinterest inspiration. This is a cute sign. I love the weathered look of it. It's very farmhouse, and the muted greens and grays are just perfect for the fall season. Now that all the paint is dry, it comes time to actually put the letters on. I don't have any stencils to use for these letters, and I don't have a Cricut, so I decided to do some freehand lettering. I'm not going to bore you with watching me pencil line all of this out, but I will show you in a minute how I fill it in. The pencil lines are kind of hard to see, but in a close-up here you can kind of see that I've got them lined up there and ready to go. I'm using my fine tip Craft Smart paint pen in black, and I'm just going to start doing the letters as best I can. I've got my iPad sitting next to me so I can see how the letters look, and I'm just going to go for it. So it took me about an hour to do all of these letters. Now, it probably would have taken a little bit less time if I wasn't watching TV in between, but I didn't want you to have to sit through all of that. I think the letters turned out pretty nice. I am happy with how they look so far. I'm just going to finish off these bottom letters, which are in more of a handwriting, and then I'll add in the pumpkin. I'm using my Craft Smart pen again to color in the head of the arrow, but then I'm going to switch to my thicker point and do the line of the arrow all the way across. Now I'm going to paint on the pumpkin. It is penciled in there, and the color I'm going to use is sort of a soft mossy green color. It's not too dark, and I'm just going to use an artist brush and then make it look like it's been stenciled on. Pumpkins are actually not that difficult to draw. You start off with an oval, sort of an egg shape, and then you draw some quarter moon shapes or some banana shapes on either side of it, and then add a few smaller shapes up on the top, and you've got yourself a pumpkin. Don't forget the stem. I'm really happy with how my sign is turning out. That green pumpkin is probably my favorite part of it. I love that mossy green color. It's my absolute go-to green color because it's just so soft and muted. What I'm doing now is taking my white chalk paint and a dry brush, and I'm going to need to distress those really dark, bright letters and numbers and the arrow. On my inspiration, it's really weathered. It looks like some of it's peeling off, or maybe that it's been sanded off, but I didn't want to do any sanding because I didn't want to take off any of the paper that's on this actual placemat. The other thing I'm going to do though is I'm going to use my brush and stipple some of the paint on. So it's not just brush strokes that you see, it's more of a stippled, aged look, and it really adds to the character of the sign. Here's a side-by-side look of the original Pinterest inspiration on the left and my duplication on the right. My first pumpkin project today is using this styrofoam Dollar Tree pumpkin. It was previously sprayed or painted a chalk paint creamy color. I don't need it like that anymore. So what I'm going to do is take this spackle that I have, which is like drywall spackling compound. I always just grab a big jug of it because I tend to use it in other projects and I want to make sure that I have enough on hand. So what I'm doing is just taking a piece of wood and I'm going to be applying the spackle all over the pumpkin. I don't want to see any of that styrofoam peeking through at all, and this is going to give it some really neat texture. So here I've got the pumpkin all covered and I just used vertical strokes, and now I'm taking a little piece of wood shim that has a really nice texture at the end of it, and I'm just going to drag it down all the way around. And this is creating somewhat of a look of wood. So a little bit of wood grain, a little bit of some bumps and things like that, but I don't want to smooth it out completely. I still want some of the rough edges to be there. I set this pumpkin aside for a good 24 hours, almost 36, to dry completely because there was a fairly thick layer of the spackle on it. And now I'm just taking a fine grit sandpaper and very gently just running it over the pumpkin to get any of those little loose ends or little tiny little things that are sticking out. I don't want those on there. The next step is taking my bare antique wax in dark brown and a makeup sponge, and I'm going to be applying the wax fairly heavily. I want it to be a really dark brown color. I'm just kind of testing things right here to make sure I'm doing what I want to do, but you'll see me shortly adding a lot more of the wax to get a nice deep color. Once the wax had an opportunity to cure or dry, I'm taking some black chalk paint and a dry brush, and I'm just going to be going over it, adding some of the black onto it. And you can see what's happening to it. It's turning into a beautiful pumpkin that kind of looks like bark. And that's the look I was going for. So I'm really happy with how this is turning out. I've got some of these Dollar Tree cookie sheets. They come 2 to a pack. I'm going to be cutting out the outside edge because I don't need that for this, but I do always keep those pieces just in case they work for a craft down the road. I'm going to be cutting strips that are about 2 inches wide from the short end of the cookie sheet. One thing I like to do when I'm working with this, once it's cut, is fold in the edges because those edges that have been cut with the scissors are usually fairly sharp. I don't think you can really cut yourself deep, but you do get sort of like paper cuts from them. So this is something that I like to do before I actually start creating with the strips. This is another Dollar Tree styrofoam pumpkin that come orange, but I painted this gray for a previous project. I didn't need it, so I'm going to repurpose it for this project. I'm going to take these strips and glue them onto the pumpkin, but I'm not going to glue them flat. I'm going to leave them sticking out a little bit. This photo is my inspiration. I created this really big metal pumpkin last August for a fall challenge, and I thought, you know what, it would be nice to have some smaller pumpkins like this. So I'm going to take all of these strips and glue them all the way around the pumpkin, leaving some space so it looks a little bit like the inspiration piece, but this will give other creators and you out there, my viewers and subscribers, an idea to create a type of metal pumpkin for yourself using just things that you can pick up very easily at dollar stores. Here's what it looks like with the first layer of the metal pieces on it. To me, it kind of even looks like a spider, but anyhow. Now I'm going to take the rest of the strips that I have and I'm going to cut them in half. It's going to give me about 1 inch to a 1/2 inch piece. I'm not going to fold these because I want that thickness and I didn't want to have to go and cut up another Dollar Tree cookie sheet because I will need that for future projects. So I'm just going to be really careful and I'm going to glue these in between the large ones. One thing I also want to mention is that you probably shouldn't use your fingers to hold the hot glue down. This metal gets really, really hot, so I did use my fingers for sometimes, but then I used my scissors more often just to make sure I didn't burn my fingers. The last thing I'm going to do to make my pumpkin complete is add a wooden stick for a stem and a little bit of some vines just to give it that curly Q look. If you like this kind of content, I'd love for you to stick around a while. Click the subscribe button. Those 2 black arrows will show you where to go. Thanks so much for watching. See you in the next one.